talk about what, of course, you know me with immigration attorney, I'm going to make it related, the news about Trump being guilty. Whether you're for Trump or not, that's not the point of the show. Okay. The point of the show is to see how is that related to immigration. Okay. So, because there's already a lot of people on social media talking about their opinion about Trump and the guilt, him being guilty of all 34 charges. That's pretty wild. I mean, that was expected. But, anyways, whether you think he can actually get elected or not, I don't think so at this point, but I could be wrong. He's still obviously going to get some votes, a good amount of votes, right? A hardcore right for him. They're still going to vote for him. But aside from that, okay, and I don't like to make assumptions, right? Especially about election. Clearly, a lot of us made the wrong assumption in 2016. So, but what does it look like? What could immigration look like without Trump in 2024 and beyond? Well, I guess 2025 and beyond. All right. So, just some things to share with you. And of course, I'm here to answer some of your questions. Absolutely. So, in the meantime, you're welcome to drop a question or share your experience with the community here at greencardguys.tv. We really encourage that because some of y'all have useful experience, whether it was negative or not, that other people can rely on, especially if you have suffering and delay. Hopefully not, but all right. So here's the deal. All right. Already stated the obvious. Trump found guilty in all 34 charges. Still pretty wild to even say that out loud. But can you believe I was just Google searching this that it appears that a president who's been found guilty of who is a felon can still pause. There's nothing that would prevent him from being a president in terms of a guilty conviction. Tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. If y'all know, let me know. Okay. But here's the deal. I welcome anyone of a political affiliation. I don't ban anyone because of that. I mean, this is not meant to be political type of talk in that sense. So if you're a Republican, cool, all good. But in terms of immigration, if you're gonna talk shit about that, about immigrants, then you're gonna be out. So that's a different situation. Um, so here's the deal. It's pretty crazy, yeah, that a felon can still serve as president based on what I've seen, right? I'm not a constitutional expert, whatnot. I'm not a professor of law in any of that respect. So I don't have time to do that type of research. Okay. But that's what it appears. But it's pretty wild because I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to share my screen on YouTube and Facebook. It's wild because in Texas, I'm sure you've heard in other states that if a person has been convicted as a felon in other states, they cannot vote yet, but they could serve as president. It's kind of wild, right? Isn't that kind of weird? So I'm sure the founding farmers, the framers of the not farmers, the framers of the Constitution in the United States did not expect that a person, a candidate for election, um, still be, a nominee for the presidential election as a felon. But anything can happen. So anyway, I'm sharing my screen of this Texas State Law Library that mentions can a person convicted of felony vote in Texas? And essentially, the answer is no, unless they've been fully discharged of their sentence. So, anyways, let's see here. But I want to share some information about what the presidency can be like. Okay, what immigration would be like without Trump, 2025 and beyond. Okay, because Republicans before Trump, like the one before that was George W. Bush. He was nowhere near. His policies were nowhere near like President Trump and what he mentioned. Okay, so what he was trying to propose, anything that President George W. Bush had proposed before, it was a guest worker program. So it was actually inviting immigrants to work in America. Okay, so it was not trying to do like a travel ban, a border ban, nothing like that. That only recently started when it was in George W. Bush's administration, unfortunately. So, but it had nothing to do about that president. So it's really just Trump, really, that's against immigration. So he's super confusing, right? So in that respect, because he said, "Oh, pro DACA DACA holders have a," he promoted to say, "Oh, they should have a pathway to citizenship." Well, he didn't really do anything for it. He actually tried to do the reverse, to ban, to take away DACA, and that's still in the hoopla right now, unfortunately. So these are some things you need to know about immigration without Trump 2025 and beyond, because you need to know this, because you don't want to assume, with all that being said about Trump, you don't want to assume that that just because a Democrat is in office, okay, that Democrats will do what you want for immigration. No, that's not the case. You can't assume that. So don't sit on your hands, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're eligible for something right now, don't wait around. Okay. Number one, the fees already increased with USCIS, and the fees could potentially increase every 2 years. Congress gave USCIS authority to check that, to increase it every 2 years. In fact, the last time, I think, before this increase in April 2024, um, was when it was President Obama's administration. President Trump tried to actually, under his administration, increase it, but that got blocked because they were trying to. I think for the main reason they tried to put a fee for asylum. I think it was only $10, $20, but still. Um, so, anyways, I want to share some good things, but some negative things, right? Okay, with President Biden's administration with immigration, he essentially, the main thing was trying to reduce the processing times, because if you already have status, you may have experience trying to get a green card, or you did get a green card or become a citizen through before President Biden's time in office. All right, so the main thing was, for example, to become a resident in America, and let's say the immigrant was in America or living in America, it would take more than a year, at least 12 months. Even when it was President Obama, I remember they used to have an email address where we could email directly to the local field office, but they got rid of that right when President Trump was in office. There was no more direct email communication. And even when there was email communication, it wasn't like we could email them anytime. It had to be a certain time period. Like the case had to be at least X months after filing. So that was the way before these mandamus lawsuits. But they cut off all that communication, which is frustrating, but it's understandable. They should think like a tech company, really, to make it easier in that sense. Okay, but anyway, processing times have cut, and just great story. We just a success story for us. We just got a case approved in about 3 months for a marriage case, and the beneficiary, the immigrant, lives in America. Okay, so if you're wondering, like, oh, what about me and I'm living abroad outside America? No, for y'all, I'm sorry, that's still taking a long time. At least 15 months, 16 months minimum for someone living outside America. So, but anyway, the other case type, like you're becoming a citizen. Before President Biden, it would take more than 12 months. But now that also is about 3 to 4 months on average after filing the application. So it's pretty good. Okay. So I believe that will continue. Okay. Because one of the, yes, hey, Test Bond 007, good evening to you. Yeah, I'm live at night. Um, Mostly because, President Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts. Still kind of wild to say that out loud, because it's like a lot of us have been like expecting this day to come for a long time. I'm sure some people who are in the banking industry have been expecting this to happen for a long time before the 2016 election. It's just one of those things. Like, I'm sure that um, some people, like, they want to say it out loud, what do they call, like, cause alarm to a situation, but there's no power. That one or two individuals don't have the power until it hits like the mainstream media, and for better or worse. So the day has come. He's been found guilty in all 34 counts charges. So with that being said, back to the topic of the day: what can immigration be like without Trump in 2025 and beyond? So some things that's already been trying. They've done a trial period, I guess you could say, a pilot program, especially those folks. If y'all have H-1B or plan to apply for H-1B in the future, but also specifically renew your H-1B. Okay, I'm showing on my screen here on Facebook and YouTube the Department of State page about the domestic renewal of H-1B non-immigrant visa for certain applicants. They always want to do that. It's not for everyone. It's now closed. Okay, it was an application window. They call it the pilot program. No longer accepting applications, those bastards. But they really should keep it open. Um, sorry, bastards is not the right word, but shouldn't say that on the show. But really, they should just keep it open. They saw a pilot program, but look, I mean, the pilot program was available from January 29th, 2024 through April 1st, 2024. That's not long enough for people to apply. I mean, if they truly want to have like a pilot program, they need to have it longer for people. There's a very, very limited number of people that would be applying for this in that window of time. That's basically only February, March, 2 months essentially for this period. Yeah, pretty well. So, anyways, but this was announced, I believe, at least 2 years ago. Um, And so that's good. I mean, at least they're thinking a little bit more innovative in that sense. Um, because if you're not familiar with the process for people that are abroad, um, or go abroad for the H-1B visa stamp, they have to go through this whole thing. Okay, basically have an interview. In that interview, the officer doesn't really ask any that many questions, and then you think you're gonna get the visa stamp, but then bam, like you may get a 221G, or you may have to fill out another stupid form, DS 5535, and you're thinking like, don't they have this information already? And yeah, some people have had to wait. And so, what does that mean for someone who is an H-1B visa holder who had been living in America, only went abroad, okay, for the visa stamp? And you're thinking, oh, like, get the stamp and come right back, right? Well, you have that person has a life in America. They got a job, okay? They have rent to pay for, they have mortgage to pay for, they have a family, most likely. A lot of people I know, like, they have a family who have H-1B. And so, some people, you don't leave America thinking, "Oh yeah, honey, I'm going to be stuck for several months." I mean, quite honestly, unfortunately, you have to prepare for that, even if you have H-1B visa now. So anyway, I'm just long story short, this is a good program that they've had, but it was only for 2 months. But they're dipping the toes. Okay, the Biden administration is dipping the toes to make things easier. Okay, um, is it perfect? No, of course. There's so many things that can improve for sure. So, but that's at least for H-1B. And I'm going to share my screen on the YouTube and Facebook here. This is the page on USCIS page about reducing processing backlogs. And this started from a memo, I believe, in 2022 or earlier, whenever the new USCIS director came on board. Okay, Ms. Mendoza. And so you can see their goals. They're trying to get the N400 to become a citizen, 45 application, and certain other applications, even including I-130, to be 6 months or less. And that seems to be the case for the most part. Even the 765 work permit to be less than 3 months. So yeah, that's good, right? And it's been true for most applications. They even allow applying for work permit online. I don't recall if they allow that for everyone that can apply for work permit online, but at least a 765 for certain applications or for certain scenarios. All right. So yeah, that give you a pretty good idea there on that. Now, as I was mentioning earlier about President Trump, about the qualifications here to become a president, on the WhiteHouse.gov website, it says the Constitution lists only three qualifications for presidency. Um, yeah, I guess they don't have a moral code qualification here. That's up to the people, the citizens of America, essentially, to figure that out. The moral compass of the candidate, essentially. I mean, if that clearly, I guess some people don't even care about that. But the three qualifications to become president in the United States are 35 years old, natural born citizen. You cannot be a naturalized citizen, and it must have lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years. I actually didn't know the last one, but that kind of makes sense. 14 years, that seems like a kind of a random number. Yeah, okay, interesting. So let's get back to immigration. Okay, I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me know what you think about the 34 chargers. Let's see. All right. By the way, y'all don't have to copy and paste your question. I think I see a lot of repeats here. It actually does slow me down from answering questions. Yeah, that is a lot of charges, Queen. 34. I mean, I don't think the normal defendant does not get even more than two, one or like more than one. So yeah, that's pretty wild. Pretty wild. Okay, so okay, M on TikTok. Do I know how long it takes for your interview after the CAC approves your documents submitted online? I mean, it depends on the consular embassy, but generally it's at least 6 months, I would say. At least 6 months. If it's shorter for you, that's great. Okay. Something I want to mention, M, and to other folks who have a case or would have the interview abroad. I just want to make sure if you are in America as the immigrant or beneficiary, that you had of a lawyer to make sure with the lawyer whether you need a waiver. Okay, 601A waiver. So some people don't know that about the whether they need a waiver or not. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. All right. So Queen says, what about the border bill? Um, there's a lot of border bills. Which one are you referring to? Do you mean the border ban? So yeah, that's the thing. Like if it's gonna be RFK, what's his name? Robert F. Kennedy and or President Biden that's gonna be president next year. I just don't expect President Trump to be elected again. But I guess you can say you never know. But if it's either one of those, I don't expect that either of those, Biden or RFK, would have a border ban. Okay. Um, yeah, and Trump did that because that was before the pandemic, right? Uh, someone asked, does he go to jail for these? So I heard that even though you could go to jail for these crimes, that is not a common sentence. Okay, so that people get probation usually and a fine. Um, so yeah, this is gonna be interesting. But this criminal conviction is going to likely lead to civil lawsuits for some people. It's going to open the door. I'm sure it will. So, but in terms of jail, that will be interesting because he went live on a press conference right after being found guilty and apparently talked smack about the judge. So even if it was like traditional or common that a person who's found guilty of these similar charges would not get jail, this will be interesting. This will be interesting because I don't know how this judge will react. I mean, apparently this judge was very even keel, professional, did the best he could considering the circumstances of President Trump just Apparently, President Trump talked about the judge's daughter. Ooh, that's no. You don't talk about family of a judge. Like, I don't know even how that came about. But he talks smack about the judge after the being found guilty on a live press conference. Yikes. So maybe he could go to jail, even if it's for 1 year or 6 months. Maybe it's house arrest. I don't know. That'll be interesting.